In this video I want to go through the Gemini protocol specification, so the standard. And if you think about like reading through a standard, you might yawn, you might think about, oh my god, how boring. And for most standards this is the case, because most standards are very, very long, but not with Gemini. It is very minimal, it is very nice, it is very elegant, and I will kind of try to speed run through this. So yeah. Alright, let's just get started. On the right I have the Project Gemini technical overview site from geminiprotocol.net, I think it is, and this is the Gemini site in Emacs, of course. So I'm using Alpha, this is an Emacs client for Gemini, and yeah, let's just go through it. So, and on the left I have my notes. So the Gemini protocol is defined as Gemini instead of HTTPS. So Gemini : the default port for Gemini service is 1965 because of some historical thing. You can read all about it here. So the Gemini transactions are very simple. So the client opens a connection, the server accepts a connection, then they perform a TLS handshake, because Gemini enforces TLS, like the Gemini protocol doesn't work without TLS. Then the client validates the server certificate. The client sends the request. So this, and I will get to this in a second. When we get to the request, the server sends a response header, and then optionally the server also sends a response body. Then they close the connection and the client handles the response. Like, this is all it is. And there's no variation from this. Of course, there are some details and stuff like this, but I'll get through most of it. Alright, so the Gemini URI scheme is, I think, the same as like everywhere else. So there are of course details, so spaces should be encoded as %20 and not plus, for example, and so on and so forth. So Gemini requests, and I have a note on this. I have the kind of same notice here, so this is kind of redundant. But so Gemini requests are really simple. You have an URL, and then you have a carriage return line feed, and that's all it is. Like there's one request type. Like that's all it is. And again, you can read all about the technical details. So for example, it must have a length that is less or equal to 1024 bytes. So yeah. Alright, blah blah. Next up, the response. The response is also very simple. The Gemini response header is also just one line. It includes a status, and I will get to status in a second, then a space. The space is important. Then some metadata. This is the MIME type of the response. And then again, carriage return line feed. So this is just new line. Not just, but this is practically a new line. Alright. And I think here, right here are the status codes. So status codes, there are a few of them, but they are nicely categorized and they only have 2 digits. So with HTTPS or HTTP, you of course have 3 digits and a lot more. So, and I don't want to go through all of these, to be honest. The important one is this 2x. So if the response starts with a 2, so is something 20 something, this means success, and the server should also send a body. So it should actually send some data. So for example, some gemtext or whatever you serve over Gemini, but normally it's gemtext. And this meta tag also by default, it defaults to text Gemini. And for example, and this is also nice for anything that's text. So for example, again, text Gemini or also text markup or markdown, it defaults to UTF-8. So again, it just shows that Gemini is a modern protocol. Alright. Again, you can read all of these if you want to. And it's very interesting, again, very nice and minimal, and also the categorization here is nice. I want to kind of say this, even though I try to speed run it. It's nice because for simple clients, they only have to check the first digit to be able to know what to do next. So yeah. Alright, response bodies. Yeah, here it says it's about the meta thing which I talked about, and then it's about TLS. So TLS is mandatory for Gemini transactions, and this might be the most complicated part of Gemini, because of course TLS is very complicated by just what it is. And so Gemini specifies that TLS version 1.2 or higher should be used, or must be used rather. So anything that's lower is not accepted. And the certificates, the server certificates, are actually self-signed. So you don't need a certificate authority for your Gemini server certificates. You can just sign them yourself, which is very nice because then you are not reliant on some certificate authority, or also for example, Let's Encrypt and so on and so forth. Again, they talk about all of this here. And they use TOFU, which stands for Trust on First Sight. So this should, if your Gemini client sees a server, or for complicated clients, let's just say, it should store this certificate, and when it sees that server again, it should check, okay, is this still the same certificate? And if it is not, it should, well, give you some warning or something, just handle it differently. But if it is the same certificate, it should, like, everything's fine. So this is what TOFU kind of means. All right, there are also client certificates. So this is kind of a alternative to like web cookies and so on and so forth. I mean, I don't want to go into this here because this is like more complicated stuff, but this is a way so clients can actually authenticate to the server. So you can think about some different types of like applications using this. All right, next up I want to go, so this was the protocol. Next up I want to go into gemtext, which is the default MIME type. So text Gemini. And this kind of replaces HTML as the native response format of Gemini. All right, so again, by default, it's UTF-8, which, I mean, you probably want to have UTF-8 because, yeah, UTF-8 is kind of the standard for a reason. You can also specify the language, of course, and stuff like this. But the main thing about gemtext is that it is line-oriented. So it is not character-oriented, like, for example, markup or markdown. So character-oriented would mean something like this. If I were to type something important and I want to highlight this important thing in markup or markdown, I would use these kind of stars. And to actually parse this and to actually make this then display differently on a client, you need, like, it doesn't suffice to just parse this line, but you need to get into the line and actually parse these stars, and then, yeah, so this is what character parsing, or character-oriented would mean, but gemtext is not that, it's line-oriented. And there are a few different line types, I think 7 in total. So there are headings, so H1 through H3, so one hash symbolizes one, like the first, like the, most upper heading, so this would again be equivalent to like an H1 in HTML. H2 is specified with 2 hash symbols, and with 3 hash symbols you specify H3. I mean, that's it. All right, links are also of course very important to be able to actually navigate to other sites, and these are specified by this arrow thing, then the link you want to link to, and then an optional text to this link. And this is also, yeah, down here. So there's the specification of this. All right, next up is quote. I mean, this is just a normal quote, a line that starts with a closing angle bracket. Is that what they're called? Yeah. So this less than sign, and then you just the text that you want to quote. And then you also have like how is it called, pre-formatted lines. So you kind of, and this is used for example, ASCII art or also like source code. So this is text you don't actually want to format. So if I have this org mode is kind of messing up my my editing in this case. So if you here have some link, this will not. Let's link to link.org. I don't know. Let's link to example.org again. Example.org. Link. This will now not be displayed, or this should not be displayed as a link in Gemini clients, but should rather just be displayed as is because of these kind of backticks. So 3 backticks to start this mode, this pre-formatted mode, and 3 to end it. And then you also have stars to do a list, and I think these are further down because these are more advanced types, advanced quote unquote. So lines that begin with a star are unordered lists. So yeah, and I mean let's remove this, but org mode kind of screws it up in this case, but whatever. So this is how you would specify a list. All right, and that's it. There they have an appendix for all the status codes, and that's the protocol. Like that's all there is to Gemini. Like there's nothing more, nothing more to see here. So again, this is really clean and elegant, I think. And there's a lot of course, into all of this, a lot of thought went into. Like, there was a lot of discussion, of course, in the development, and so on and so forth, and a lot of stuff was also tried out. And this is what ended up being the final standard. And I think it's very thought through, and it's very nice. And yeah, that was it. That was the protocol. So I think, again, this is like one of the standards you can actually read through, and that's actually also interesting to read through. So I would urge you to actually read through this if you care about it. And yeah, with this knowledge, you can use Gemini like fully. Like there's nothing missing. Of course, in this video, there's a lot of stuff missing because this is a video. But if you read through the standard, you will know everything there is to know. All right, that's it. Have a nice day.